Hold on.
We will now call the meeting to order for a second time. Do you have the roll call?
I do.
All right. The first item on the agenda is the public hearing, and I will read the script. We're going to go through it again. I now declare this public hearing open at 1:30 p.m. this 19th day of September 2024. This is an official public hearing before the City Council of the City of Bandon upon the appeal of denied type 2 planning application number 24-021 at 1277 4th Street Southwest, which is a property in the Controlled Development 2 zone in the City of Bandon. The applicable substantive criteria are contained in sections 15.28 floodplain development, 16.12 conditional uses, 17.24 controlled development 2 zone, 17.76 shoreland overlay zone, 17.77 beaches and dunes overlay zone, and 17.78 hazard overlay zone, and 16.04.070 type 3 procedures of the Bandon Municipal Code and the policies of the comprehensive plan. Please address your comments to these criteria or the criteria you believe to apply to this decision. A notice of appeal has been filed by the applicant, David Hellick. This is a de novo hearing. The applicant has made changes to the application now appealed, including withdrawal of the request to develop on Lot 3 and the submittal of a geologic assessment review. Official notice is hereby given that the City Council can consider laws, ordinances, court decisions, etc., without having them established as evidence in the hearing record. A copy of the minutes of this hearing will be available in the city offices. A copy of the rules and procedures I am reading will be available in the city offices as part of the file. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to challenge whether it is proper for the City Council to hold this hearing? Are there any councilors present who wish to declare ex parte contact, site visit, feel they may have a conflict of interest, bias, or other reason to be disqualified from participation in this hearing?
I visited the site.
I had visited it a number of years ago.
Yeah, we all have.
Okay. Is there anyone in the audience who wishes to challenge any of the council members' qualifications to participate in this hearing? Okay. What does the staff have to report?
Thank you. I'm going to have Andrea pull up a presentation for us. Perfect. And if you can skip, I learned yesterday, I don't need to go through the first couple. Can you skip to the third slide? Okay, I'm going to start going through it. So we received the application on April 25th, 2024, which is the date that all fees are paid. One more. Oh, you're good. One more. There we go. Okay, and the application was deemed incomplete on May 15th, 2024, which is within that 30-day time frame that we have. We deemed it complete on May 24th after the applicant submitted additional information, or sorry, additional narrative and a statement that no other information would be submitted. We made our administrative type 2 decision on August 9th. They filed an appeal within the 10-day period, August 19th. The date of the hearing should be changed to September 18th, and then the 120-day timeline ends on September 21st. We are required by state law to get an application through the local government process within 120 days from the date it is deemed complete. Can you go to the next slide, please? So during the completeness review process, we did send out a letter of incomplete application notifying the applicant that their property was within a hazard overlay zone, which required a geologic assessment review. They did not submit any sort of geotech report or application as part of that process. Also, part of the request was to construct a stormwater management system on Lot 3, which would have been subject to our beaches and dunes overlay. They have since withdrawn that request, so I will not be going through that part of it. As I mentioned, they stated they would not submit any additional materials and they wanted us to process it as is. So we processed the application, prepared a decision denying the application for failure to meet those items addressed in the incomplete review. Next slide. Um, The applicant submitted an appeal with 3 issues. They stated that we made a procedural error with the 120-day rule, claiming that the application should have been deemed complete on the day that it was submitted. That they were withdrawing that stormwater request, and then they also agreed to supply the geotech report. That geotech report was not provided to us until September 9th. Their supplementary materials also requested a variance. However, since this request was not made as part of the original application, no fees were paid, no notices were given. We recommend you not consider that today. Next slide. So the city of Bandon no longer employs a hearings officer. How we used to hear type 2 decisions was that the decision is made by staff and then it's appealed to a hearings officer. In our 2022 code cleanup, we made a change to make that go to the city council. So we deleted the section that said hearings officer. However, what we failed to do was change the table that described how actions happened. It still says hearings officer. We consulted with the city attorney, who stated that the city council would be the decision maker in this case. As I mentioned, the 120-day rule, I went through the timeline, and that expires on September 21st. So you do need to make a decision at today's meeting and adopt findings. And this was the earliest practical date that we could hear their request. Next slide. Okay, so the geotech report, I am going to go through the items in our hazard overlay zone that would pertain to the submittal of a geotech report to put them into the record. As I mentioned, we didn't receive it until just before we had to get the staff report out, so there wasn't time to do that sort of thing. But so this project, what would apply to this project is chapter 17.78 or hazard overlay zone. And it applies to any properties that are in a high or very high landslide or liquefaction susceptibility area as mapped by Dogami. Or any lands along the ocean front. So we found that this property is along the ocean front, and thus this chapter applies. So then the geologic assessment review is what we do to ensure conformance with any hazard overlay zone criteria. Anytime there's new development, this is required. There are a number of exceptions that are allowed where you don't need to get a full-on geotech report. However, this proposal did not meet any of those standards, so we found, and they did not apply for an exception either. They did end up submitting geotech reports for this request. We review them, they have to be provided by a geoprofessional. Our code describes what a geoprofessional is. The reports they submitted were prepared by Eric Oberbeck, who is a registered geologist and a certified engineering geologist of Cascadia Geoservices. There were 3 exhibits that were submitted. One geotech report is from 2016. That's the original. They submitted an addendum that is dated in 2023, and then a technical memorandum from 2024. The geotech reports have to be consistent with the guideline for preparing engineering geologic reports, as well as the geologic report guidelines for new development on oceanfront properties. We found that the geotech listed in his reports that the reports were consistent with those standards. That's sort of how we check the box on that one. The other section of the report has to require a statement from the preparer that all of the contents required are in there, or that they are not applicable. We did find that all of that information was in there. Something to note is that geotech reports have to be valid for a period of 5 years from the date of preparation of such report. No extensions to this timeline shall be granted. The city assumes no responsibility for the quality or accuracy of such reports. The report that was submitted was dated May 16th, 2016. We would normally not accept a report that's that old because it does not meet that 5-year time frame. The applicant submitted an addendum dated 2023 that said every condition or every all the information in the 2016 report is still valid. They also submitted a technical memorandum in 2024 that stated that we note that if development does not occur within the next 3 years, or if there's a substantial change to either the site or the proposed structure to be built, the site should be reviewed again to ascertain that our recommendations are still viable. We find that that does not meet that 5-year standard. The Chapter 17.78.050 is the decision criteria that we use to determine if a geologic assessment review meets our minimum standards. The first one, A, is that it has to meet all the content standards as set forth in that previous section I just read. We found that it does not based on that 5-year provision. Let's see. There's an opportunity for the city council or the deciding body, the city of Bandon, to retain services of a professional if we disagree with this report. I don't think there's enough time to make that judgment call, so we would say we do not need additional time for that. The development standards include providing a proof of consultation with the tribe in advance. It says as provided as part of the application submittal. The applicant did not provide any evidence that such consultation has occurred, so we found that criteria was not met. We also have a hazard disclosure statement. So all applications for new development that are required to this geologic assessment review have to submit a signed form that says the property is subject to potential natural hazards, and they are aware of that, and that the property has commissioned an engineering report, and that they're aware of that, and that the property owner accepts and assumes all risks of damage from natural hazards associated with the development. We did not receive a signed hazard disclosure statement as part of their application. The code also states that if there are any mitigation measures that are listed by the geotech report, those have to be included as conditions of approval. There's no disagreement there. There were mitigation measures that are required, and those can be listed as conditions. There's a safest site requirement that we found is not clear and objective, and thus should not be applied to this project. And then there are a number of other non-clear and objective standards under the erosion control measures that are listed that would not be applicable as well. We did speak to the folks at the Department of Land Conservation and Development about how to apply the geologic assessment review to a housing project. And they stated that even if the results of a report are not clear and objective, as long as the code provisions that you're adopting or that you're applying are clear and objective, then you can move forward with that process. So we've just sort of stated that any that are not clear and objective, we are just not applying to the decision. So if you could go to the next slide. So the recommendation would be to deny the appeal and uphold the planning director's decision based on those the findings that we had here, that those 3 items are missing. If the city council chooses to approve the application, we just recommend that you adopt the findings as presented by the applicant. Please let me know if you have any questions.
Yeah, I have one clarification here. I did not realize that a new script had been placed at my desk, so I changed the date. So now I said the 19th and it is actually the 18th, and I'm sorry. I want to make sure that I did not see that was a new one,
Oh, sorry.
and it had already been changed. All right, we're going to go, the hearing is to be orderly and courteous. When it is your turn to testify, please speak clearly and state your name for the minutes clerk. It is recommended that all testimony also be submitted in writing for the record. Please put your name and mailing address on the sign-in sheet. I don't know if it's on the table or here, but wherever the sign-in sheet is, please sign in. The applicant appellant will be granted 20 minutes. Testimony from other people will be limited to 3 minutes per person. After all the testimony is taken, the applicant will be given 10 minutes for rebuttal testimony. And then at that time, we'll close the hearing. Failure to raise an issue with sufficient specificity to afford this decision-making body and the parties involved an opportunity to respond to the issue precludes an appeal to the Land Use Board of Appeals based on that issue. And now, where we were yesterday, we will have the applicant's case. Come on up, Dave. Give your name and address.
No addresses.
Hi there.
That's
There you go.
much
I can hear myself.
Dave Reed, I'm also a co-applicant for the Helix. PO Box 1808. I'm with the Wayward Art Studio. I'm gonna do my best. I had a whole crew yesterday, so now it's just me running solo. So I will do my best to answer questions, but I'm not going to delve into the deeper recesses of land use for the most part, because that's been pretty well outlined in the narrative, I believe. I've been given a script, so I don't go off track.
Okay,
So I'm
that's,
gonna read
I
my script.
understand that.
It says, due to the city's technical issues on the 17th that resulted in continuing the hearing to today, the majority of my team is not available to participate in this hearing. As I said, I will do my best to answer the questions, to address general concerns. It appears that most of the city's concerns are related to the planning process and geology, and our planner and geologists are unable to attend today's meeting. I would request that the record remain open for 7 additional days so we can respond to any comments that are brought up in this meeting, since I don't have anyone with me pursuant to ORS 197.79 subsection 6. As an overview, I have a statement from the planner. We want to acknowledge that first, the quantity of material before you is a lot. I also am overwhelmed by the amount of material. However, I have been overly educated more than I was before on the land use requirements specific to this parcel. As you would know, maybe as a background, I personally, my company, the Wayward Art Studio, I do residential and commercial projects in Bandon throughout Oregon. And the goal is, if I don't know how to do something or I need to have someone licensed, I have a team of geologists, civil engineers, structural engineers, mechanical engineers, traffic engineers. And so I basically juggle balls and wrangle kittens. That's kind of what I do. Except when it comes to construction documents. That's what I do. Back on my track here. The applicant, as the applicant, we have the burden of proof and we take that responsibility seriously. Our goal has always been to get the approval to build the home on the property owned by the Helix. And we understand this is a multi-step process that requires land use approval to seek development permits. Our original application was tailored to incorporate recommendations provided to the property owners by the city, specifically that a dry well would be required and that it could be located on Lot 3. We've withdrawn that element of our original application in this appeal because the city's requirement and recommendations have apparently changed definitions of certain aspects. So there is no reason for us to move forward with any requests to impact the portions of the property that are regulated by Goal 18 and the BDO zone. Because we have not been able to get clarification from city staff on what is applicable to our request, and because the information is not included in any application forms available to the public, we have reviewed the city's development code and did our best to address the clear and objective standards and criteria impacting the proposal. That is not a simple task. The code is quite diverse, as you are experiencing. Navigating Bandon's development code and planning process is difficult. Regardless, our goal remains to constructively work with the city for residential land use approval and to be able to continue working towards developing the property with a single family home. Actual development approval, zoning compliance is not part of our request. We hope to be able to apply for development approval soon with the plans included in this review. Our revised plans are in substantial conformance with the plans before you, should any revisions become necessary in order to comply with the city's land use approval. The basics of our request. This is a request involving housing. Want to provide a house? Build a house. The proposed dwelling is 2 stories, but has a footprint of approximately 2,000 square feet, which is comparable in size or smaller than the surrounding structures on lots similar or smaller in size. Only 26% of the subject property would be covered if our request is approved. A maximum of 50% lot coverage is allowed. As depicted in our plans, the proposed dwelling has a height of 28 feet measured from native grade, which is approximately 2.5 feet below base flood elevation. Under the city's current regulation, our proposed height is 25.5 feet, which is less than the maximum of 28 feet. This also takes into effect that we are 1 foot, 2 feet above base flood elevation. So we have restricted the height and made the house above the floodplain. No impact to any portion of the property subject to goal 18 or the city's beaches and dunes regulation has been proposed in our current request. We have completed an extensive amount of geologic analysis and engineering of our plans and the proposed development. All of those professional recommendations are incorporated in the proposal and plans. There is no scientific evidence supporting public comments that our approval of our request or development of this property will harm the surrounding development or the natural environment. We believe our application is approvable and complies with all clear and objective criteria and standards of the Bannon Municipal Code, and we ask that you find the same upon closure of the record. This must be all.
I do have one question. Can you
Sure.
tell me what percentage of lot 2 is covered by the structure? I realize that that's the only lot that was accepted of the 3 lots, so do you know what percentage?
I am not sure, as I don't have those drawings in front of me. I don't think that piece, I think it's taken as the lot cohesively. So I don't have that specific lot because it's been
Okay.
consolidated. There is enough space to meet the setbacks and then also to have a infiltration drain incorporated in that space too. So
Where's that drain gonna go out to?
the drain infiltrates into the soil itself and will be designed by the geologist.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay, so now shall we take rebuttal and then testimony from the other people, and then you can come back up and rebut.
Didn't have any questions? I can answer basic question.
Not
Oh,
yet. Maybe we'll hear from the people also first, and then we can ask questions.
The HELIC application.
All right, do we have people?
Well, this is what the house is going. Okay.
No, the people. Testimony from people will be limited to 3 minutes.
Thank you.
All right, so do we have a list of people that are signed up?
John Dietrich.
John, you're up. Oh, my goodness.
Thank you, Madam Mayor and members of the City Council. I'm John Dietrich. My address is 522 Madison Avenue Southwest, which is a home that is 3 lots to the south, 3 homes to the south of the subject property we're speaking to today. Some background on me and why I'm concerned about this. My wife and I built our home there in 2010. We purchased the property in 2003. And we only purchased the property after due diligence was done by former city attorney Fred Carlton to see if it was fully buildable. So we would not have purchased a property on the South Jetty that was not fully buildable without hazards such as we're talking about today. So we've lived there 14 years. We do split our time between a farm in Nebraska. I'm a semi-retired farmer. So in my business there, and as a former professional forester who worked for Bureau of Land Management, I've had a lifetime of experience with land use issues of all kinds. And we started actually taking family vacations in the 90s. So we have a deep love for this city. And I've learned a lot about where I live, particularly the South Jetty area. So I've observed so I would have, based on my observations over the 14 years, I would oppose any new development west of any of the current properties because of the danger to the Ford Dune. And so the Ford Dune is a key issue here. So we all know how important Ford Dunes are and how well protected they are from development under Goal 18. And this lot is only being brought up because it's one of 3 accepted lots, which is one of my issues. I don't think they should be accepted anymore, but I'll go back to the Ford Dune. I became alarmed in about 2018 that the Ford Dune was rapidly eroding from the west, and it was not being replenished by summer sand movement as Ford Dunes typically are. They ebb and flow. They were just ebbing. So in 2019, I hope I'm not going to run out of time, Mayor, before I'm through here, but this part is important. But in 2019, I set flags on the landward side and to see what would happen. In 1 year, 4 feet was eroded, and so it moved back 4 feet in 1 year. I set the flag the next year back 4 feet. It moved another 4 feet the next year. I set the flag the next year and it moved 4 feet back. So it was eroding at a rate of about 4 feet per year since I started those observations. And I wanted on the ground observations. Of course, I could have used Google Earth, but I wanted to see what was happening right in front of our house. It was clear that it moved back about 20 feet in 4 years. And from my memory, when I started setting flags, it had already eroded quite a bit from when we built our home in 2010. So as part of I contacted Dana Nichols about my concern about everyone on the South Jetty because of the damage to the rapid erosion of the foredune and the risk of damage to all of us if that was breached or something would happen. She brought in LCD, I believe, and maybe two other agencies. So they met there on the foredune in the spring of 2023. And because she kindly was alarmed, kindly said, okay, we need to check this out. So as part of the testimony I provided, and I wasn't able to be at that meeting. So that's a year's worth of history. Then the HELIC application came to the fore, and I provided testimony on July 28th of this year, which you should have in your packets, and I have here, and I'm just going to hit the high points. I only brought one copy.
We do have, John, we do have everything that you sent in.
Okay, good. I thought you probably would. So, so what Google Earth shows, and that is a very accurate tool. I was verified on the ground and wherever I've lived, it's within a foot of what it says it is. It shows that at the HELIC property, in front of the HELIC property, it has eroded 30 feet since 2015. Images taken in 2015 versus images taken in the spring. How much time do I have left?
You can wrap it up, just kind of.
Yeah, so anyway, that's eroded that far. So the whole foredune area there, all along the South Jetty, is eroded 20 to 30 feet since 2015. That's a good image I could get. So what the HELIC application does, to back up then, since 2015, lot 4 has disappeared and become beach. Lot 3 includes the apex of the foredune, the apex being the highest point. The applicant wishes to push the house right to the base of the sharply rising incline. And there's only, and the 4th Street will also have to be extended that same distance to the toe of the sharp incline of the foredune. And what Google Earth shows is there's only going to be 35 to 40 feet left of vegetated foredune between the beach and the front of that house. So I think it's very ill-advised to put that home there. And that home is going to be on the beach at the current rate of erosion in 5 to 10 years. And what's that do then to destabilize that dune for the risk of the adjacent homes? See, and it's clear, the other concern is the beaches and dunes overlay has been extended eastward, far eastward since we built our home. I think it's highly likely that if we could not have been granted a permit to build on our lot, if we reply now, science has changed. When science changes, it affects land uses. And if you own property that science says now has new hazards, then that's the way it is. And I have been subject to those things before. And then I question the consolidation of lots 2, 3, and 4 that the applicant has used to, it looks like, eliminate the setback on the west side of lot 2. And I question why that should be allowed. But the big thing is that there just shouldn't be any more development closer to that foredune. It's so ill-advised. What happens if we start getting winter storms and during king tides, and all of a sudden 20 feet is gone in the winter? Why would you want to build in that situation? And why would anybody on the South Jetty want to be threatened by that? The other key thing, one more key thing that is, I don't think it fits maintaining the character of the community. Because it's placed within 10 to 15 feet of existing property, which certainly isn't going to improve the optics of the South Jetty, which Bandon Code says the character of a coastal village will be maintained in the South Jetty. It's a wonderful, unique area, and it would not fit that. There's bigger reasons, but that is one significant reason.
John, we probably need to wrap it up. I think you.
That's
Because you were very, everything that you're talking about is here and we have read it carefully. We really have. So
Okay.
we appreciate your remarks. and
Okay, thanks.
We got to give somebody else a chance now. Thank you.
Actually, David Reed signed it first.
What?
Did you wanna?
Well, no, he's,
Okay.
he'll come in after everybody else has testified. So Preston, you're next. Preston's up.
Thank you. My name is Preston Waite. I live at 12506 Street Southwest on the jetty. I live, right behind Madison. There's a house and there's our house. We've lived there since 2018. We have watched that, Ford Dune or the dunes deteriorate over that time. Last year we watched, water come over the dune. A few pieces of wood came over the dune right in front of our house. We have a pretty good view of the entire jetty down to the river. And I've watched water come over the jetty is in very close proximity to the current location of that property. So it does come over now. It will continue to deteriorate. I was at the meeting that Dana set up because John was out of town. And pretty much their statement was, yes, it's deteriorating. Is there anything we can do about it? No. So I have that comment to make, and one other comment. I did go look at the property. You're going to extend that street 40 feet past the current property that's there on Madison and 4th Street. That will, I'm not an engineer and I'm not a forester, but it certainly looks like it runs right straight into the end of the Ford Dune that's coming up there. And I agree with John. It's very ill advised to add any buildings to that area of the South Jetty. And that's all I have to comment.
Thank you, Preston.
Thank you.
Now, what about people on Zoom? What about the 6 people from yesterday? No hands.
up?
Okay, so now we're not going to be challenged and say they wanted to talk and they're not getting a chance. All right. So anybody that didn't sign up that wants to say something? Okay, I see others from the jetty. I didn't know if you wanted to say anything. Anybody else? You can have 3 minutes.
Not in reference to the code.
All right, or if something's already been said, maybe you know, but if you've got anything new that you want to say and you want to talk for 3 minutes, that's fine. All right, then we're going to now, it'll be time for the applicant to give a 10-minute rebuttal. Or a 5-minute or whatever.
We get to re-announce, or is it it's just me?
All right, Dave Reed.
Dave Reed. I appreciate the input from the residents, this neighboring residents. I do acknowledge, I think the geotechnical report, which was done in 2006, says that
16.
16, sorry, 16.
I think it was 16.
Yeah,
wasn't it?
that's what you
16.
said.
So 8 years ago, followed up by a technical bulletin, reflects that the changes to that site specifically have been nothing. Otherwise, the geotech would have reported that in the technical bulletin. This kind of goes back to the legitimacy of the geotechnical report. Other than subsurface soil, like the base soil, anything that goes below that has not changed. And that is also reflected in the geotechnical report. So not to get into the semantics of the geotechnical report and the city's opinion about it. However, that's outlined in the rebuttal for the appeal hearing. But that's just one point. I would have to say that if the Ford Dune, which is kind of a living entity as it moves with the tides. Yes, it will fluctuate back and forth. Not a geologist, but that's what I understand. And that I could say that the construction of this house, per the geotechnical report, will not impact the site, the Fordune, Beaches and Dunes overlay, or the neighboring properties any more than the existing properties that are there now. Can't say too much, so.
Okay.
That's why I had people yesterday.
So Dave,
So-
sorry.
Sure.
Dave, can I interrupt for just a second about the geotech report? So the
Yeah.
staff is claiming that the original geotech report states that there are to be no extensions, but we have an addendum and a technical memorandum attached. And they're claiming that that invalidates because the original information provided in 2016 should not be considered in 2018 or 2023 or 2024 when the memorandum was written. Do you have some evidence to say that we should consider that a legitimate geotechnical report?
That was the reiteration of the geotechnical report from the technical bulletin, technical review that the geotech provided in September.
Okay.
So basically it revalidates it. It's not like you're gonna go out, dig new holes and find different things.
Okay,
The only thing that would have changed in that time period would be the surface.
yeah,
So
so
he was out there in a site visit. I was with him and we observed the site.
Okay, so you're claiming that the geotechnical report, regardless of the language saying we should not consider any addendums to this geotechnical report, should still be valid. Do we have anything from DLCD or BOEM, whoever was the two people that you met with, John, the state representatives that said, yes, this Fordune is eroding?
So the meeting that we had on site was just to talk about how dunes work. I think we were the residents out there had been seeing different things happening. And so the folks that we invited out explained to us how dune formation and dune erosion work and specifically in our area on the jetty. There is a lot of historical data about the movement. And especially because John's been tracking it out there for a while. But I would say that doesn't necessarily relate, I think, to your question about the geotech report. So that was sort of in general, it wasn't specific to this property. It was generally how does dune
Right.
movement work out there?
Okay.
Hopefully that helps.
So what you're saying is the geotechnical report does not specifically cover the stability of the dune or the erosion or addition
No,
of the
that's what I
dunes.
can't figure
Yeah,
out.
Yeah,
okay.
me too.
So,
Yeah, I can't.
but
figure that
the
out.
geological assessment review would or would not cover because that's the majority of the people that are here
Erosion.
citing concerns for development on that property are saying the majority is about dune erosion, right?
Mhm.
So,
Our code related to erosion control measures is not clear and objective, and so it's not applicable to this application. What we can apply is that they were required to get a geotech report prepared in a certain way by a specific type of geologist, and that any of the mitigation measures listed in that report become conditions of approval. So that's the clear and objective path, and that's what's being applied. So if that geotech report has language in it about the dune, then that's the city doesn't get involved in the details of what that report says.
Yeah.
It just attaches any of the conditions
okay.
or any of the mitigation measures as conditions.
So to the people that are here concerned about dune erosions, in our evaluation of this process, we can't consider that because it's not clear and objective. We can't consider that in whether we actually approve or deny this application.
Is that true? I don't believe that. She's shaking her head. What?
I know, I have some other questions, but yeah, hang on to your question, Preston. Go ahead, Dave.
Additionally to what you were mentioning, your point was that originally we had an infiltration or a dry well that was proposed on the side of the property. And so the concern came up, well, first of all, definition, but then also the concern of, you know, where to place that in context of the foredune. And so in lieu of making the process smoother and moving forward, we moved an infiltration system to catch stormwater runoff behind the house, which is farther away from the foredune. And so the area that we would be impacting is no different from the neighboring property that is 5 feet away.
Yeah, I guess my question is, would the geologic report have addressed the erosion that, I mean,
No.
it doesn't, no.
Not specifically. That's what she's saying.
The geologic report addresses the placement of where the house is going to go on the piece of property, and it would not address anything outside of that. Because it basically,
Well, then
it's the
it-
outline of what you're required to provide
It's,
in piles or
it's
piers.
soil stability.
Yes,
Yeah.
tolerances, that kind of thing
So,
to
so
support the
this
structure.
this isn't saying that, that the erosion didn't occur, because obviously the erosion did occur, and it must have been all along the foredune, not just in front of John's property.
Well, the entire
Residents.
property is reviewed just for any kind of erosion based off the technical report from the original report that was made in 2016.
But in 2016, maybe the erosion that he was mentioning hadn't occurred yet, so it
Certainly not to the extent of 30.
certainly not to the extent. So was it addressed then in the addendum that was done in 2024? No.
Dana?
Not to my knowledge.
No. It was a site evaluation based on photographs from 2016.
But the
Yeah.
So-
original in 2016 stated about erosion or no?
No,
No,
it talks
that's what I
about the
thought.
stability, soil stability mainly,
Right.
hydrology, things like
Just
that.
the
It's not talking
stability to
about-
hold a house,
Right.
right, okay.
So if I can just make a qualifying statement, or Dave, correct me if I'm wrong, the geotech report just covers what would be lot 2 originally,
Correct.
not the other,
Not out on.
That's
Yes.
out of the.
out of the
purview,
scope
yeah.
of the
And that's what
geotech
the real
report.
Because we're not impacting
Okay.
that, so therefore there's no reason to review it.
Okay.
Okay. All right, does anybody else have any questions of
Yep.
either? Okay, and we can ask questions of the people who've already
Peter's asking
testified
Yep.
or of Dave.
Yep, I'd like to,
Wait,
So the process is, if you want to open it back up to members of the public, that the applicant still gets their remaining last 10 minutes.
Yeah.
And then you must close the hearing.
all right, well
Okay,
then we won't
thank
be
you.
asking any more questions. I mean, of the audience.
right, I'd like to ask about the process of the 4th Street extension. So you're at, that's right, Reed. So you're asking, you know that you're still gonna be working with the planning department if this is approved.
Correct.
But you're asking for, I guess us to consider a variance in the process in that you need to apply for that 4th Street addition before you're granted approval. So understanding you got to work with this department to actually see this project through. The 4th Street extension project, asking for a variance is kind of, it's not really the standard practice, right?
Correct.
Okay.
So we can't consider the variance at all.
Well, actually you can because it was
We can.
brought up in the review.
We can.
You
Yeah.
just said we can't.
You're shaking, there's shaking of heads over here.
But you mentioned it.
I'm hearing several
Just
different.
the-
things.
They applied or they put findings into the record regarding a variance. However, no variance application was ever received by our department. They never paid a fee to consider a variance. We never noticed for a variance. So I would say do not consider their request for a variance.
Okay, so, but my point is about the process, Dave.
Yeah.
If the process for asking for that variance is not being followed, we can't even really consider it right now. You're asking us to consider it, but you're not, there is no application.
Correct. You can get land use approval with this, however you will get strung up in the zoning compliance. With it possibly with the extension of the street. As far as I have been,
Yeah, I
informed,
understand,
which is,
yeah.
That's-
You're just trying, yeah, I get it, but,
and
but
to
you un-
to that effect,
yeah,
on the I can direct you to September 9th, it is the supplemental findings. I know, there's a lot. Trust me.
Okay.
You see my tabs. I know there's a
Yeah,
lot.
well, that's what
I
I've got,
too.
a bunch of tabs.
I too. It's quite.
Supplemental
the,
findings.
it's a thing.
You know what he's referring to? Or how to find it?
Sure, it would have been in what was submitted to you, this
Okay.
last time. Let's see. it
Yeah,
would
it's
have been-
Several hundred
September 9th,
pages.
2024.
Yeah, the attachment number 4. So behind the record of decision, behind the required notices and behind the intent to appeal.
Why don't you just go through it?
Yeah,
for us?
because we
It-
can't,
please.
there's no
You've
way
got
we're gonna.
There's no-
400 pages
Yeah.
of this shit,
Okay.
so.
Thank
oh,
you.
Come on, you're referencing that you have come with tabs. What's going on?
Sorry,
Well,
apologize.
in the findings to address the situation that you have brought up, the land use, Megan with the land use has provided proposed conditions of approval that acknowledge that and try to correct that situation. So that's all I'm going to point out. I'm not going to go any farther because
Okay.
that's a whole,
It is definitely getting into the weeds.
yes, I'm not going into the weeds. But I know it's there for review.
So removing the Fourth Street extension from that zoning compliance review process, there are other processes that still, you still have to get zoning compliance in all the other
Correct.
processes.
Yeah.
So you have to go back to the planning department regardless of.
Correct.
this-
We're not done yet.
Yeah, there's still a long process here. Excuse my informality here, but why are we hearing this? Why
Yeah.
wasn't it just?
Question.
Yeah, that's what I was
No,
thinking.
legitimately, why wasn't it just, if you had said that the application was deemed incomplete, complete the application and go through that process?
Well, it says right here that,
You what? Speak up.
But now
They
we
chose
have the
not to
complete
submit.
materials, and this body is now charged with
yeah,
hearing this process and trying to figure it out. And I don't trust myself or any of the other people to deem whether this geological
I know.
report is accurate.
Right.
Or whether it's legally binding because of the language
years.
in the original geotech report stating no memorandums, no extensions, none of that. So I also, the geological assessment review process should be considered as well, because none of us are qualified to do that.
and I want to ask you, Dave,
Yes.
you may or may not know, is why did your applicant have no intention of submitting a GAR?
As far as I know, not being anything to do with legal. The state has a mandate for needed housing. And the needed housing is to be clear and objective. And the GAR is not clear and objective in terms of residential construction. And there's a whole area in
Even
here
on
that I can throw at you.
Oh, I'm sure you
It's all
can.
been written out,
Even on
so.
a site like that.
So because it's not clear and objective standards for the geological assessment review,
Because there is,
we shouldn't
be asking for it? Is that what you're saying?
correct,
be considering that.
not to be
whether-
considered, yes.
Okay.
Interesting. Are we getting too far?
This is in the
Let me-
weeds,
I'm
yes.
trying to look at your face.
Yeah, I'm trying to read Dana's face too.
I think you're welcome to have
I'm
that
trying to
discussion.
read the
That's,
city
oh,
attorney's face.
that's their argument. The city's stance is that geologic assessment reviews are required. There are certain standards in there related to erosion control measures that say to the least extent possible or minimize. Those terms are not clear and objective, so we have not applied those particular standards. The requirement to have a report and do all of the other things in there, those are clear and objective. What the report yields may not be clear and objective, but the requirement to have one and to record mitigation measures is clear and objective.
That's in
And
our
they-
code.
And they did not.
That's a requirement in our code, and we did reach out to the state for confirmation that we were applying it properly. And
They
they
said
they
yes.
confirmed, yes.
Yes.
Okay.
Okay.
We do outline the technical abilities to clear the lot, do the work that needs to be done from a geological standpoint. I believe that one of the specific areas was a problematic that the geologic report is not accessible or has a duration for 5 years. We have a duration of 3 years based on the technical memo because we want to build the house. That is a more restrictive requirement, as far as I know, less years to build than more. And the requirement for 5 years in general is it's subjective. I mean, why 5 years? Is there an engineering requirement for 5 years?
Well, but that's what
Well,
that's the
but-
clear and objective standard that's
Yeah.
in our
Based on
code.
what?
The state adopted it, so.
Well, any of the things that are in our code, at least you knew what
But then also the planning department is also specifically picking the different parts that apply, which is also subjective. If the whole thing should apply, if it's gonna apply, because then it would be clear and objective.
He's talking to us.
I am talking to you. yeah.
Okay, but you're really not
You look
talking
like
into
you're
the
talking
mic.
to somebody else.
Yeah, so he's.
I'm on a short leash.
Yeah.
I've gone through this process before. We have had a previous instance where we had a hearings officer, land use attorney go through the same process with the GIR. That process through the hearings officer was found to be not clear and objective. So we are going off of that basis since the city has not really resolved that issue based on that previous hearing.
And that hearings officer was employed by the city?
Correct.
Okay, I just want to make
It
sure
was
that
in
we
the
were
city of
talking about the
Bandit,
same
yes.
city.
My guess is this may be adjudicated higher than our
Yeah.
level here, so
Uh-huh,
I think.
okay, that's,
Well, on a side note, that might be a consideration for Lane Council of Government actually was doing our reviews on this. And there were some on the council that had concerns about somebody out of the area
I
reviewing.
remember that. Peter.
Mhm.
Right.
Yeah.
So in the state's desire to have clear and objective standards applied to land use,
Yes.
I will try and reiterate the need for somebody that has objective ideas about how to apply this land use. And I think we should reconsider the need for an outside hearings officer.
Okay, but I think this is another issue because we are
know,
under
yeah.
the 120 day, and so
Yeah.
we're getting out of what we're.
I know, that was just a peripheral
I
side.
know, and you're right. I agree with you 100%, but we have a decision to make here today, or we're not going to meet the 120 day.
right.
Yes,
So in this particular case, the applicant has requested that the record be left open for 7 days. And in looking at the statute and how that applies to the 120-day rule, if a continuance or an extension is granted at the request by the applicant, that is considered a extension of that 120 days. And I would like to put that on the record now. And if the applicant has a different opinion than that, I would like to hear it.
I am not authorized to extend or have a continuance of the meeting.
you're not. Well, then we're not going to grant a 7 day.
No, we're not gonna leave the record open for 7 days then.
So he made it clear there. Okay.
So does the applicant wish to have an additional 7 days for the record be left open or not?
Yes.
So pursuant to the statute, then that request is being requested by the applicant, which gets us beyond the 120 days. So it would be my interpretation that because the applicant is requesting that, they are waiving the 120-day rule.
So how many days would I have for 120 days?
It expires on the 21st.
I'm sorry.
It expires
This is
on the
the 18th.
21st.
21st.
So no, unless they agree to it, absolutely not. This is exactly the trap that we will fall into and,
Mhm.
And it's not just simply the applicant requesting that the record be left open for an additional 7 days. If any person who participated wants an opportunity to comment on what is submitted in that 7 days, they can request that.
Or submit new evidence or testimony.
Correct.
Correct.
so are we bound to, do we have to leave this record open?
It's my interpretation of the statute that if the applicant is requesting that we leave the record open, they are waiving that 120 days.
So we don't have to
If
make a
we, if
decision.
we agree.
You do. You are required to leave the record open if the application, if the applicant is requesting it. That is what they are doing on the record. And therefore, it would be my position pursuant to the statute that they are waiving that 120 days, whether they are stating so on the record or not.
Okay.
So what our legal team is saying is that if you're requesting the record to be open, that's a legitimate
Waiver,
Waiver.
legitimate waiver of the
Eight.
of the
120
the
day rule.
extension rule.
Per our information, the findings that we have provided and the application that we provided, we believe that the city has already passed its 120 days based on the state rules for applications. That's in the weeds. I do not know enough about that to be useful. But I know I cannot grant the extension.
Well, if you can't grant the extension, then
Then
They've already,
you've already asked for the
he's already
7
asked
days.
for it. You've already asked for it by requesting the record be open for 7 days.
that's.
So
what the
we're
law
obligated
says.
to,
We're obligated to keep it open for 7 days, which goes
Correct.
beyond the 100.
Unless he wants to rescind that.
I will rescind it.
All right, he's
Okay.
rescinding the 7 day. Good.
So
Because
the
I think we
decision
need to
has to
make
be
a
made
decision.
today.
We'll make a decision here today. And we'll be
Oh.
comply with 120 day and, okay?
I apologize. I wish I could have other people.
I know,
better
I
than
I
to
appreciate it was
explain
a
this.
comedy of errors, but
It is a
things
comedy
happen
of
and
errors, yes.
we're trying to do the
I
best
will-
we can.
I will, since I'm here, since we've gone this far down the rabbit hole.
Okay.
I did have some, I think it was, what is this? It's Exhibit F, which outlines our communication back and forth with the city.
Do we have Exhibit F in here?
You do.
we do.
Okay.
And it does outline that we have tried our best to communicate with the city to try to make this process as easy as
Oh,
possible
yeah.
Yeah, I remember reading.
in
that.
a concise timeline.
I don't know where it is, though.
Specifically, the only thing that I take kind of offense to in the report that was provided by planning, and I don't want to be not being this person, but I'm going to be this person,
Dave,
is
speak
that
into the mic, Dave, so it's.
to, in order to make this date and to agree to this date, we were informed Wednesday, August 28th. Nope, wrong one. I was close. Oh, no, I was wrong. I was informed. At 3:08, August 28th. We received the email. The city council is able to meet September 17th at 1:30 for your public hearing. August 28th, 3:08. And then, because I have children and Megan has children, August 28th, 5:53 or 4:53, we received, please find the attached notice. So that was the heads up that we got for the 9 days to prepare all the information to get here today, to be waylaid, and then to not have any professionals with us. That was an hour and 45 minutes to make a decision. So I have a phone. It does have a number and it does ring. I can be communicated with. That's all I'm gonna say about that.
Thank you.
So then why not just grant the extension? Why, you know, they allow the city?
I have not been allowed to provide.
Let's
that for
not,
the
let's
owner.
not go there. He's
No.
rescinded it. Let's.
Yeah.
No, no,
leave it at
no.
that. We gotta
I-
make a
I'm not,
decision.
I'm talking about something entirely different.
What?
Okay, let's end it.
All right.
You won't change
So
my
be it.
mind.
Taylor's shaking her head.
All right, okay, now it's time to make a decision.
Can I just add a couple things in there? Just to clarify that, so I had to get the notice out when I realized that we had inadvertently had a wrong, incorrect date on the completeness review, or the date the application was deemed complete, and I realized we had time to have the hearing before the city council's regular meeting. We could have always re-noticed the meeting. That's very easy for us. Had they come back and said, we can't make that date, we need it at a later date. That would have been we do that all the time. So happy to have done that. The only thing to point out is that our code states that you have 5 years from the date you get zoning compliance to be able to build. I am not sure, but I would guess that that's why that 5-year period is put in the geologic assessment review chapter. Also in that, in the time where a hearings officer reviewed a geologic assessment review, he was very strict that the report had to be valid for a period of 5 years. So that is why we have continued to implement that requirement that the report is valid for 5 years. Thank you.
Okay, Jana, it's also in our code that an application is not accepted at the city until the fees are paid.
I don't know that that is, I'd have to look at our code, but I don't know off the top of my head. Do you know? But we don't review applications until we have money to review them. I mean, we don't look at applications, people like to hand stuff in, and
Yeah, let's,
we're not gonna look at it until we have money to be paid to look at it. And fees can be paid online now. They can be paid at the front desk. We have people who come in, get a planning fee assessment form and pay the same day. So
When we receive an application, if there's a check with it, it immediately starts to go into the process.
that's right.
If an application is received without a check or money being paid or whatever, it's put aside until those fees are paid.
We try not to even accept them.
Okay.
So if someone comes to the counter, we say, you're gonna have to, here's your planning fee assessment form, go pay. And then we'll accept that form. Sometimes people submit stuff via email though, and we just write back to them, you need to pay your fees.
When this application was turned into the city, was it returned back to the applicant?
I believe it was
Yep.
submitted online, and so they asked, what's the fee? Nikki responded to them with a planning fee assessment form and they paid after that.
I don't know what to say.
do I hear a motion?
Well, I can,
Josh, Chris, you have any questions? Are they,
No questions here.
Chris?
Are you still?
No, I'm good.
He's good. All right.
He's good. Okay. I don't know what to say. This is so confusing. I'm sorry, but it is.
well, let's see.
Jerry, you had some questions earlier,
No, I
or did Peter ask them?
had them, but they were out of, Peter took care of them. Let me see here.
You have
We
a
have-
choice, either to
Well-
deny or to approve.
Yeah, I know. We have, I'm looking for the page.
Well, okay, I'll make a motion. Well, based upon what I've heard and what's been,
Talking to your mic.
Okay, and get the motions, give her the motions.
who is,
Okay,
I'm looking
okay,
for.
I'll make a motion.
Okay, you do it now.
Okay.
Oh,
I move that the appeal be denied, the application be denied, the council adopt the staff reports along with findings presented to the staff's presentation, and that the staff is directed to draft an order to this effect.
Do I hear a second?
I'll second that.
Been moved by Madeline, seconded by Jerry, that the appeal be denied, the application be denied, the council adopt the staff report with findings presented in staff's presentation, and that staff is directed to draft an order to this effect. All in favor, please raise their hand.
You want a roll call vote?
Speak, I want a roll call. Chris, Joshua?
Yes.
Aye.
All right,
Jerry?
let's,
Oh,
all
yes.
right, it's unanimous.
Yeah.
Thank
Okay.
you. I'm sure this is not the last we'll see
Nope.
of it, but,
We'll be
Well,
seeing you around
It is,
well, the last that we'll see of it.
yeah.
for the
well-
time being.
The last I'll see of it.
Yeah, because
Yeah,
you're
that's for
quitting,
sure.
Howard.
Good way to celebrate my birthday and we're not going home.
It's not a coward situation. We have two other issues we have to cover here.
Oh, that's
We
right.
do.
Sorry, you
We're
guys.
not done.
We're not,
done.
we forgot. You guys are done, but we've got this other stuff here.
Okay, I guess the guns are coming in on.
We'll take a 5-minute recess so that,
Okay, Mary, put all this stuff aside. These are slam dunk.
these are easy.
Excuse me.
What?
Just wanna, yeah.
So which one are we doing first?
I don't, where's my agenda?
I don't know.
Public hearing
Cherry
act-
Creek is first.
Okay.
Task force.
Yeah.
Oh, thank you, Paula.
Your birthday's today?
Oh, yeah, I know
Yes,
my
today's your
birthday.
birthday.
Mine was the fifth.
I wished you on Facebook, but when I got here, I
Yeah,
forgot.
no cake. I didn't know it. Well, this wasn't the cake kind of day.
I already had some.
All right, so
Happy
let's,
birthday, Jerry.
Oh, thank you, Josh.
Okay, let's
okay,
do
let's
this.
go on to the city abandoned task order 101.127 relative to the Ferry Creek Bridge replacement and pump station project. Tori.
Yes, thank you, Madam Mayor, members of the council. This is a request for the council to approve task order 101.127 involving the Ferry Creek Bridge replacement and pump station project. This task order is a supplement to the professional services agreement that was entered into between the city and the Dyer Partnership back in May of 2024. The scope of work for this component of the project includes providing preliminary design for the project, preparing 30% pre-design reports, identifying required agency permits, surveying the project site and the surrounding public right-of-way, identifying adjacent deeds and properties. A combination of federal and state monies will be used to fund this project, and the engineering services performed by the Dyer Group is expected not to exceed a maximum of $246,910. With that said, city staff is recommending that the city council authorize the city manager to execute task order 101.127 for an amount not to exceed $246,000 or $246,910. And with that, that includes my presentation. I would also like to mention that we do have Aaron with the Dyer Partnership in attendance, should you have any specific questions about the project.
I have a question. Is this just housekeeping paperwork?
Yes,
Because we voted on it in,
correct.
okay.
It's a
that's-
matter of obtaining authorization to expend that amount of money.
Okay, but we already awarded the contract.
The contract has been
Yeah,
awarded.
that's what I thought. Okay,
So
Madam Mayor?
this does not do any work. This is just engineering.
yes,
That's correct. This is all engineering.
that's to draw the pretty pictures.
The order, execute the.
Okay, I make a motion to authorize the city manager to execute the city abandoned task order number 101.127 relative to the Ferry Creek Bridge replacement and pump station project for an amount not to exceed $246,910 for all professional services and reimbursable expenses.
Second,
Been moved by Madeline, seconded by Jerry, and that we approve task order 101.127. All in favor?
aye.
Josh and.
All right.
Yes.
All right. Yeah, I know, me too. Unanimous.
Okay,
Okay, now the next one, resolution 2417, item 3.2, extending workers' compensation coverage to volunteers. I just saw one thing where it says community service volunteers.
Mhm.
Well, believe me, when people get sentenced to community service, they're probably not volunteering. I would put community service workers. Because
But-
that's what they're doing.
but-
They're,
Those of us that volunteer at the picnic.
Yeah, I
or
know,
the
but this-
barbecue,
but the
all of that's
community-
covered.
no, but the community service is people who are commuting their sentence by performing work authorized.
Oh.
This is just
Okay.
one, you didn't read it carefully.
I didn't. Oh, I did.
You're forgiven. So anyway, that's,
Enough to read.
I
remember.
would just put workers instead of volunteers.
Now, let me ask you something, Paula. Haven't we always had this coverage?
Yes, this is an annual election you make each year.
Okay, so. this
Just
is
to
re-
renew it.
Yeah, renewing it. Okay. Madam Mayor, I make a motion if I can find it. Hello, where are
To
you?
approve resolution 2417,
Yes.
I'm assuming.
To approve, resolution 24-17.
Second,
Been moved by Madeline, seconded by Jerry to approve resolution number 24-17. All in favor?
Aye.
aye.
All right.
Yep.
All
That'll
right,
do it.
unanimous.
We're done.
We're done. We're through.
Okay. I was very, I couldn't say disappointed. I never saw that guy before, but I just felt he didn't have much respect for any of us. He just kept,
Turn your microphone off, darling.